guys, thank you for stopping by. My name is Zombie Penguin, and today I'll be talking about single crew combat ships.
For the purpose of this video, I'll be using a standard loadout across all the ships. I understand that the standard loadout for these ships might come better. However, there are so many variances, I felt it better to standardize on the selections I used for this comparison. I chose the Regulus for this power plant, all stop shields, Bracer as a cooler, and the CF series laser repeaters for all the weapon hardpoints. Nothing against ballistic weapons. Again, this is just for comparison purposes. These were arbitrarily chosen, as I believe these are kind of a middle-of-the-road components for fighter ships. I will put a link below for the tool I use for calculating damage, and a tool to help you better visualize the ships if you need it. So the first one we'll be looking at today is the Aegis Sabre. It is personally one of my favorite fighters. It packs a little bit more of a punch, has larger power supply, and larger shields than the Arrow and Gladius that we'll be looking at here in a minute. Its disadvantages are that it's a much larger target, and it doesn't have the speed nor agility of the Arrow and Gladius. But those hardpoint advantages are definitely a good trade-off. This is going to be one of the highest sustained damage ships because of that power plant. That extra power plant definitely makes a difference. Just about all the ships on this list lack that extra power plant. Although, given the extra shields, that you'll be able to take more of a hit, but you'll be suffering a little bit if you use laser repeaters and constantly drain your battery. The next one we got here is the Aegis Gladius. In my opinion, one of the most beautifully designed ships. It is faster than the Arrow, has the same weapon hardpoints. It has a very small profile from the side there, but from the top and bottom will have a larger profile than the Arrow that we'll look at here in a minute. Very, very similar ship, a little bit faster. However, the Arrow will be a little bit more maneuverable. This one will come down to really personal preference. Also kind of depends what you're using it for. The Arrow does have only one fuel scoop, while the Gladius does have two fuel scoops, meaning that for longer fights or longer range, the Gladius might be your only option. So here we have the Anvil Arrow. This is, like I said, a much smaller profile ship. Even from the top, from the sides, you don't have the flares that the Aegis Gladius has, so that's less things that can break off, in my opinion. This one's going to be a little bit more maneuverable. These guys both have a good amount of sustained damage and are probably the most versatile combat or strictly combat ships that you have. Unfortunately, you won't be able to log out in these. So I have here the damage displayed on the screen. So these guys with the laser repeaters that we talked about are going to be at 1320 DPS. And that's, again, using standard laser repeaters. And you may be able to get more damage using something else. Next up, we have the 325A. This one I have customized with the like a midnight blue looking color there. This one's gonna pack a little bit more of a punch than the Aegis Gladius and the Anvil Arrow, because it has a size 4 on the nose as opposed to the size 3. You'll be able to log out on this ship. It does have a bed on board. It doesn't have the speed or maneuverability, only by a slight margin, but it is again a little bit more versatile of a ship, because this one does have a living quarters, a bathroom. You'll be able to log out in that bed. It actually has cargo space as well. The only downside with this ship, in my opinion, it does have a larger profile. That kind of spoiler on the back kind of makes it a larger target, as we saw from the side. So we'll be looking at the cargo space on that here in a second. And then I'll pull up the DPS charts. So, again, like I said, a little bit more damage than the Gladius and the Arrow. Using those laser repeaters, that size 4 does make a bit of a difference. So, one thing to consider. Next up, we have the Aegis Stalker. There's going to be a couple variances of this same ship. There's a Warlock. There's a Titan. The Titan will be a freight variant. The Stalker will be kind of a bounty hunter variant, or a police officer variant, as it has cells in the back. The Warlock has an EMP, and the Titan is empty on the back, allowing you to carry freight. We will be looking at this one here on the inside. The model we will be looking at is going to be a Stalker, which again is the kind of bounty hunter or police officer variant. It is not going to be as maneuverable or as quick as the 325A, and significantly less so than the Arrow and Gladius. But it is going to have more versatility. It does have the bed, as you just saw. This is a space right here that will actually be changed into an EMP, or allow you to carry some freight. It does have the same amount of damage hardpoints and same sizes as the 325A, allowing it to put out a good bit of damage. So whether or not the customizability matters to you, I wouldn't let it be a deal breaker, as we might see customizability here for the Titan. So this one is the Aegis Hawk. This is going to be a bounty hunter ship. It is one of the higher damaging ships that we'll see today, strictly looking at the weapon hardpoints. So it is designed, like I said again, just for bounty hunting. Has no cargo space, less a space for one prisoner on the back there. It is going to be designed for catching people, so it is fast, it is maneuverable. Downside is it not going to be as fast as the Aegis Gladius, again, nor the the Anvil Arrow. Although you are trading off all that for a good bit of damage. And I'll pull up that damage chart here in a bit. That's the rear cargo hold there, where you can currently jump in on and log out. Although later on that might not be the case. This is meant more for prisoners. So you'll see that the damage output is extremely high on this one. The only downsides of this is the huge power draw that extra gimbals, or those extra gimbals, do put some strain on the power plant. And if you go with laser repeaters on that particular one, it is going to put you at a disadvantage. Next up, we have the Anvil repeater. The Anvil Hornet. This is going to be one of the scariest fighters, in my opinion. It has the advantage in just about any scenario where it is on defense or attacking a stationary target. This is going to be the standard Hornet. The other variants will be tricked out. Unfortunately, this is the only one that I had available to me at the time that this video was made. Yeah, this is going to be the highest damaging ship on this list. It can mount a turret there at the top. At its only disadvantage is it has a couple disadvantages. So with all those weapons, it does have to lose some maneuverability to kind of balance out. It does lose some speed, but it makes up for all that with just pure damage. 1,980 damage there, which is significantly more than the Anvil Arrow and the Aegis Gladius. Next up, the most common of the fighters, the Aurora. So this particular one will, I think, still have some good uses going into the future. It will most likely be an exploration / cheap combat fighter or scout. You'll be able to upgrade it a little bit. It probably won't be used, for cutting edge fights, but it does have a bed, making it good for longer range combat. So that is something to consider. Let's see. Oh, it is not going to be as maneuverable, unfortunately, or not going to be as quick as the other starter ship, the Mustang. But you do get the bed as a trade-off. There is some variants of the Mustang with a bed. Today I'll be pulling up the Mustang Delta, which does not have a bed. However, it does have a larger weapon loadout. So, next up here we have the Mustang Delta. Like I said, it's going to have, or this particular variant is definitely going to have much more firepower than that Aurora. It's not going to be as large of a target. By by a bit of a small margin, depending on the angle, I guess, that you're looking at. The different variants of this particular ship will have less firepower. The Mustang Delta is kind of a special edition that I just so happen to have. The Mustang Alpha is going to have significantly less firepower. I'll pull up a side-by-side comparison there at the end of this video, or the end of this little snip. And there you have it. You see that the size 2 weapons do make a difference on that Delta. It kind of depends on the purpose that you'll be looking at for this ship. Next up, we have the Aegis Sabre Raven. Very similar to the Aegis Sabre, however, it is completely different. So this one will be packed with an EMP, much like the Aegis Avenger Warlock. Unfortunately, it does not have near the firepower, but I believe the EMP on this one is larger. I'll pull that up here in a second. Very small profile from the sides, however, large profile from the top. This one will be probably not a ship that you want sneaking up on you and hitting you with that EMP, because once it does, your shields and defenses will be disabled, and you'll be probably second guessing your life choices. Even though it does have very low damage output, or less damage output than some of the other ships. Next up, we have here the Misk Reliant. I have the core on display here, although I wanted to get a hold of a Tana. This one is just a core variant. The Tana is the fighter variant and does have some more weapon hardpoints. This one will have capacity for 2 players. However, the second player doesn't really do anything. Currently, at least. Maybe at a later point in time, they'll add some extra functionality where there's some turret or something that they have independent control of. But like I said, currently it doesn't do much. Unfortunately, in my opinion, this one is kind of a weaker ship because it is a huge target compared to the other ships. It does have a good weapon loadout, but I don't think that profile is a good trade-off, and something that's like in comparison to something like the Hornet. Doesn't have a bed. It has a good speed and decent maneuverability, but again, in my opinion, I would prefer the Hornet. Again, you'll see the power plant drawing a lot of power because we're using laser repeaters. So that might be something that you might consider on any of the ships that might be doing that. Next up, I got the 85X. This one is more of a touring ship, although it is a very small target, and it might actually end up seeing a little bit more combat than we were expecting, as it might be the escape vehicle or it might be the transport vehicle on and off larger ships, like the 890 Jump. It is kind of often referred to as a parasite fighter. However, it does have its own quantum drive, so maybe it might be extremely useful for other purposes as well. It does have an extra passenger slot, and it has about the same weapon loadout as the Aurora. Next, I got the Drake Buccaneer. Not a big fan of this particular design, although some people might prefer those huge engines. It is a fast ship. It has a good amount of damage. A lot of the gangs inside the game do use this particular ship. It kind of screams piracy to me. Not really a ship that you want chasing you, but it is. It might be a cool looking ship to some. Very good damage output. Again, using those laser repeaters. The downside on using them on this particular ship is the huge power draw. You might have to go with ballistic weapons in this case, especially if you're hitting a caravan. You'll just have to coordinate it correctly. Some of the other ships that I couldn't get a hold of are the alien ships. The glaive, the blade, and the scythe. They're unique ships. I couldn't put them into this video. One, because I couldn't get a hold of them, but also that they're very unique ships that it's kind of difficult to compare using that standardization that I have put the other ships on. The glaive will be a harder hitting, slower moving fighter ship. The blade will be a smaller arrow kind of feeling ship, and the scythe will be another harder hitting, larger, slow moving ship.